one man cause 40 million deaths. And today, 16 million men still carry his DNA. The legendary Mongol emperor, Genghis Khan. A monster that once became the world's greatest nightmare. Are you ready to hear how this devil rose and left the entire world breathless? Introduction. The storm, born from the steppe. The largest contiguous land empire the world has ever known, stretching from the Pacific to Europe, from Siberia to Iran. This was the Mongol Empire, and at the center of that storm stood one man, Genghis Khan. To some, he was a founding father who united scattered tribes. To others, a ruthless conqueror who set civilizations ablaze. He remains a complex legacy, one man embodying both civilization and savagery. Before his rise, the Mongolian steppes were an arena ruled by endless chaos. Relentless intertribal wars, deep blood feuds, and sudden betrayals that shattered fragile alliances were a way of life. In this fractured and brutal world, loyalty was the rarest treasure of all. Power was not measured by bloodline, but by the sharpness of the sword. So how did a rejected, abandoned child, cast aside by this chaotic world, rise to become a conqueror who changed the course of history, leaving behind both fire and silk in humanity's legacy? It all began on the banks of the Onon River, with a child born clutching a blood clot in his hand. Temujin. This is not the story of a prince born into wealth and legacy, but of a master survivor forged in the fire of betrayal, captivity, and loss. Chapter 1. The Rise of an Outcast. Temujin. What forged Temujin's character? His unshakable sense of loyalty and his ruthless resolve were the unimaginable hardships he faced. His leadership was not learned in palaces, but in the harshest conditions of the steppe, shaped by blood and tears. At just 8 years old, he suffered the first great blow of his life. His father, Yesugei, was poisoned by his old enemies, the Tatars. Left without a leader, the tribe saw Yesugei's family as a burden and abandoned them to die in the heart of the steppe. Years of poverty and hunger taught Temujin the most brutal rule of survival. The weak are erased. Tensions over leadership within the family grew so severe that Temujin killed his half-brother Bektar with an arrow to assert his authority. It was his first killing, but it would not be his last. As a young man, he tried to rebuild his life by marrying his childhood betrothed, Borte. But the law of the steppe struck him once again. His father's old enemies, the Merkits, raided their camp and abducted Borte. This humiliation ignited the fire within Temujin and drove him to launch his first great military campaign. Alone, his strength was not enough. He sought help from Togrul Khan, the leader of the Kerates and his father's sworn blood brother, and from Jamuka, his own blood brother. Together, they attacked the Merkits, destroyed their camps, and rescued Borte. This victory was the first great success that carried Temujin's name across the steppe. But this alliance also marked the beginning of his greatest rivalry. Temujin and Jamuka were two brilliant leaders, yet their visions stood in complete opposition. Jamuka believed in noble blood and an aristocratic order. Temujin believed in merit, that ability and loyalty mattered more than lineage. This philosophical divide ended their friendship and brought them face to face at the Battle of Dalan Baljut, where Temujin suffered a devastating defeat. Years later, in 1203, he was driven to his lowest point after being ambushed and defeated at the Kalakaljid sands by his former ally, Togrul Khan. Only a handful of loyal men remained at his side. Drinking from the muddy waters of Lake Baljuna, he swore an oath with them that would echo through history. The Baljuna Oath. This oath was a pledge that if they achieved victory, they would share both wealth and hardship equally. This moment became the foundation of Temujin's leadership: unconditional loyalty. Anyone who demonstrated merit and loyalty, regardless of origin, could rise at his side. These betrayals carved a lesson into Temujin's mind in blood. Lineage and tribal bonds were chains. True power could be born only from unwavering personal loyalty to the Khan. Rather than submit to fate, Temujin would be reborn with a revolutionary vision: to unite all the tribes of the steppe under a single banner. Chapter 2: The Forging of a Nation. Genghis Khan. The hardships Temujin endured did not destroy him, they hardened him. His goal was no longer merely to survive, but to transform the steppe at its very core. This chapter tells how he united the fragmented Mongol tribes into a single nation and laid the foundations of a modern state. His reforms were not only military reorganizations, but a social revolution that severed Mongol society from tribal loyalties and reshaped it into a population of loyal citizens of an empire. In 1206, on the banks of the Onon River, the leaders of all Mongol tribes gathered at a great Kurultai. There, Temujin was formally granted the title Genghis Khan. Although the exact meaning of this title remains debated, it is widely believed to have carried the powerful sense of universal ruler. This marked the birth not of a tribal chief, but of an emperor. To hold this new nation together and turn it into a machine of conquest, Genghis Khan enacted three fundamental reforms. 1. The decimal system. Genghis Khan took the long-standing decimal military system of the steppe and transformed it into a political and social tool that reshaped the entire society. People were reorganized not by blood ties, but by military units. Everyone was assigned to units of 10, Arban, 100, Jagun, 1,000, Mingan, and 10,000, Tumen. Men from different tribes were deliberately placed within the same units. This was a brilliant act of social engineering that shifted loyalty away from clan and tribal leaders directly to the Khan and the state. One was no longer a Taichiud or a Tatar. One was a Mongol. 2. The principle of merit. He rejected aristocracy and noble blood outright. The only things that mattered to him were ability and loyalty. Under this new system, even the poorest shepherds or the sons of blacksmiths could rise to become the highest-ranking generals. Some of the most legendary commanders in Mongol history, such as Subutai and Jeb, rose not through noble lineage, but solely through their talent and their unwavering loyalty to Genghis Khan. This was a true meritocracy. 3. The Great Law, Yasa. Genghis Khan created a written legal code for the entire empire known as the Great Law, or Yasa. By imposing the death penalty without exception for crimes such as theft, treason, and desertion, the Yasa enforced iron discipline across both the army and society. At the same time, it contained a level of pragmatism unprecedented for its era. Clergy of different religions were granted tax exemptions, and diplomatic envoys were given full immunity. Yet this tolerance was not absolute. It existed only insofar as it served the interests of the state. The law also included provisions banning Islamic halal slaughter, Jewish kosher practices, and circumcision. This made clear that Genghis Khan's policy was not one of idealistic tolerance, but a pragmatic instrument designed to reinforce Mongol domination. Genghis Khan had no longer created merely a nation. He had forged an unstoppable war machine. And that machine was about to turn its gaze upon the world. Chapter 3. The Scourge of God, Conquests. The Mongol conquests went far beyond a simple hunger for land. They were a fusion of military genius, unmatched mobility, psychological warfare, and total destruction. Genghis Khan's strategies carried the laws of the steppe into the heart of the civilized world, and his ability to adapt allowed him to overcome every obstacle in his path. His campaign against the Khwarezmian Empire stands as the most striking example of this style of warfare. The secret of the Mongol war machine lay in elements that were simple yet deadly. Every mounted archer, armed with a composite bow capable of piercing armor, was an angel of death. On the battlefield, they were like ghosts. Their armies would suddenly disperse, appearing to flee in panic. This was their most lethal trap, the feigned retreat. When the enemy, intoxicated by the promise of victory, gave chase, the horizon of the steppe would suddenly fill once more with horsemen. The ambush would close, and the hunter would become the hunted. Each warrior kept multiple spare horses, granting the Mongols extraordinary speed and endurance. Most importantly, they wielded terror as a weapon. By annihilating cities that resisted, they left others with no choice but to surrender. The Khwarezmian campaign revealed exactly how this machine functioned. In 1218, a trade caravan sent by Genghis Khan was accused of espionage by the governor of Otrar and massacred. Genghis Khan responded calmly, dispatching 3 envoys to demand the governor's surrender. Khwarezm Shah Muhammad not only refused, but executed 1 envoy and sent the other 2 back humiliated. This was an unforgivable insult. Genghis Khan's response was clear. "You have chosen war." Genghis Khan divided his forces into multiple columns and struck the cities of Khwarazm simultaneously. This strategy prevented the Shah from concentrating his army and mounting an effective defense. When the city of Bukhara fell, Genghis Khan rode his horse into the great mosque and addressed the survivors with words that would echo through history. "I am the scourge of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." This was only the beginning. Cities such as Samarkand and Nishapur, among the greatest centers of culture and learning of their age, were utterly destroyed. This devastation was not merely an outburst of rage, but a calculated form of psychological warfare, designed to demonstrate the price of resistance. Yet the Mongols were not only warriors of the steppe. They were inexperienced in siege warfare at first, but they adapted with remarkable speed. By incorporating Chinese and Persian engineers into their armies, they learned complex techniques, building catapults and siege towers, and even diverting river courses to flood cities into submission. What made them unstoppable was not brute force alone, but their ability to learn and adapt. And yet, after this storm of fire and steel, the legacy of Genghis Khan would, unexpectedly, bind the world together. Chapter 4: The Legacy of Fire and Silk. The legacy of Genghis Khan is like two sides of the same coin. On one side, destruction on an unprecedented scale. On the other, an order that connected the world as never before. That a conqueror responsible for the deaths of millions could also become the greatest facilitator of global trade and cultural exchange is one of history's deepest contradictions. To understand his legacy, both sides must be seen clearly. Fire, destruction, and death. On one hand lies the brutal reality of the conquests, during which millions of people lost their lives. The rich and ancient civilizations of China, Central Asia, and Iran were devastated. Cities were burned, libraries destroyed, and traumas inflicted that would last for generations. In this sense, Genghis Khan is remembered as one of the greatest destroyers in history. Silk, Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace. On the other hand, the vast empire he created established the safest and most extensive trade network the world had ever known. During this period of peace, known as the Pax Mongolica, the legendary Silk Road was revived. Under Mongol law and discipline, roads emerged that were said to be so secure that a virgin carrying a golden tray on her head could travel from one end to the empire to the other without fear. Travelers such as Marco Polo were able to journey from China to Europe, building bridges between two worlds thanks to this unprecedented security. Beyond destruction, Genghis Khan's lasting contributions played a critical role in shaping the modern world. The Yam system. He established the first effective intercontinental postal and communication network. Through this mounted courier system, news and orders from the farthest corners of the empire could reach the center in days rather than weeks. Pragmatic religious policy. To maintain imperial stability, he adopted a general tolerance toward different faiths. However, this policy demanded absolute obedience to Mongol law and clearly defined its limits, banning certain religious practices such as halal slaughter. Cultural and technological exchange. Secure trade routes allowed not only goods, but also ideas and technologies to flow freely. Chinese innovations such as gunpowder, the compass, and printing traveled west along these routes, fundamentally altering Europe's future. Genghis Khan died in 1227 during his final campaign against the rebellious Western Shia. Yet his greatest failure was his inability to establish a stable system of succession. By dividing the empire among his 4 sons, he planted the seeds of the power struggles that would erupt after his death and ultimately lead to the empire's fragmentation. Genghis Khan was dead, but the world he had created was changed forever. So how do we remember this deeply controversial figure today? Conclusion: the judgment of history. Genghis Khan was neither an absolute hero nor a demonic figure. He is perhaps the individual who best embodies the complex, half-civilized, half-savage nature of human history. On one hand, he was a unifying leader who brought tribes together, established a system based on merit, and connected the world. On the other, he was a ruthless conqueror who destroyed cities and caused the deaths of millions. Judgment of him still varies today, depending on where you stand geographically. In Mongolia, he is revered as the founding father of the modern nation and its greatest national hero. In Russia and the Middle East, he is often remembered as a brutal tyrant and a conqueror who laid waste to their lands. In the West and in China, his legacy is viewed in a more complex light, acknowledging both his devastating conquests and the positive contributions of the Pax Mongolica. So was Genghis Khan a barbarian who shattered civilizations, or a visionary who, perhaps unintentionally, laid the foundations of the modern world? Maybe the answer lies in the fact that history's greatest leaders are always both creators and destroyers. The judgment is yours.